All right, I don't know what that was about. It did this to me the other day, too, and I don't understand why it does that, but it did. It just, stopped, would not reconnect. Don't know what the deal is with that. So probably because OBS is trying to update, and I haven't updated OBS in a couple of days, and I think OBS is just being finicky because of that, so I'll try and update it as soon as this stream is done. I don't like updating it right before I broadcast because it screws up all of the audio inputs. It does it every single time without fail. So we'll do that. I apologize. Just hit refresh, and you should be good to go. So these are the soldiers here who have been captured by the Ukrainians. Then you got this video here, an alleged MiG-29 flying against a Russian Su-35. MiG-29 is down to the bottom, S-35 up there. Now, again, the Ukrainians have claimed that they have shot down several. The Ukraine doesn't really have an air force, though. They don't have that many. So when they go up, they're really outnumbered. But they have found success in the air. It's just that there isn't enough of them to make a big difference. We'll get into some of the totals that are alleged here in a little bit. But these are Russian helicopters attacking. So, again, very, your typical stuff there. But this is an interesting one. This is where you've got a crash. So, you see right here, this is a parachute. We're going to zoom in on that here in just a second. This is a crash. This is a Russian helicopter that was downed outside of Kiev. And here's the video. Keep an eye on this little part here, and then you'll see the parachute from the pilot over here. Helicopter splashed. Here's the pilot. So, I mean, just very, there's the image right there. Get kind of a close-up shot of that. But, the Russians are having success, don't get me wrong, but the Ukrainians are fighting back, and that's the thing that I want people to know. This actually broke live during my radio show yesterday. We talked about this on the show, that the AN-26 was downed, and it killed everybody on board. This is a transport, I believe. So, just a lot of this is stuff that you'd see. There's air traffic around Ukraine. Everybody's avoiding it, obviously. Doing what they can to avoid Ukraine, with the exception of a few. This is an airport bombing. There's the missile. Now, what's so interesting about this conflict, as tragic as it is that, you have two relatively modern militaries fighting each other in the information age where everybody has a camera, and a high-resolution camera at that. So you're going to see some things during this conflict that you haven't really seen before. There's not a lot of air-to-air actual combat that you will see. Most of the time we have to get that stuff years later, and it has to be released by the governments and that sort of thing. This is a really good Twitter channel to follow if you are on Twitter. This account, these are both dead. I can't use any of those accounts. They're toast. But this here is pretty interesting to watch this. So he's got some interesting, footage, and some of it is authentic. What we are seeing, though, is a lot of people posting video game footage as if it were what's happening in Ukraine. A lot of video games deal with Ukraine, Russia, that conflict, and that sort of thing. And so a lot of times what you're seeing, show up on TikTok and other things they're actual video game cutscenes. And people are confusing it with actual conflict that is happening over in Ukraine right now. But it's not. So you got to be careful with that. I've seen a lot of people just, posting. It looks compelling, and they want to, show what's happening over there, and I get that. But be real careful about the stuff that you come across, because a lot of it is not real. A lot of it happens to be from video games. But on another note, stuff that we have in our video games now is so realistic that you often can't tell the difference between it and what is really happening. So you got some Russian tanks moving through. Now this is, I think you pronounce it Sumy. Now the Russians took the city. However, they paid a heavy price in taking the city. Apparently the Ukrainians put up a really fierce fight. They lost a lot of tanks, a lot of equipment. Here's some of that. This is, again, Sumy. The Russians were ambushed, and the Ukrainians were real smart in that they knew that they weren't going to be able to match the armor of the Russians. So what they did is they bought a ton of Javelin missiles from us, and those Javelin missiles will take out anything that the Russians have. So they bought a ton of the Javelin missiles, and they cost about $100,000 a piece, but they're still a lot cheaper than a tank. So they have lots of Javelins to take out lots of tanks, and you're going to see the Ukrainians do that throughout this conflict. This one is I want to stop this video here. This is the most compelling video that I've seen so far, with the exception of the bicyclist who got blown up by the missile on day one. Watch this sky right here, and you are going to see a Russian jet come across. It's going to basically do one of these things, and he's going to fire missiles in this area here. Of course, his family, here he comes. Of course, the kid is obviously petrified. Now, they're saying that that's a residential area. It obviously has residents there. I don't know if there is any commercial manufacturing stuff that is nearby. That's, all things that you have to factor in. But you also have to see stuff like this. Now, this is in Georgia, but look at the protests. You start looking at St. Petersburg, Russia. They're arresting. It's illegal to protest in Russia. Okay, so this is all happening. St. Petersburg. Remember, the Russian people, for the most part, they count the Ukrainians as brothers. They have very long intertwined history. This is the city center of Sumy. So those are Russian tanks going in there, but they paid a heavy price getting in there. This is Moscow. Lots of protesters out there. So allegedly, again, heading into Sumy, some of the attacks that the Russians got hit with. Start to see more of their hardware destroyed here. So the Russians paid a heavy price getting into some of the places that they were getting into. The other thing is that, now, of course, the Russians are saying that they will talk to Kiev, but only when the Ukraine surrenders. And, of course, Ukraine, at this point in time, it's way too early for them to surrender. This is my opinion. They're fighting fairly well on the ground. They can certainly set themselves up for a pretty good insurgency if they need to. It's just that I think that the country is so big, they weren't organized enough to protect everything. We now know why the Russians went after Chernobyl. They're using the Chernobyl zone to attack other parts of Ukraine, so they're using it as a launching point. We do know that the Chernobyl power plant was hit. We don't know how badly it was hit. We do know that radiation did increase in the area. We don't know to what extent that radiation will be an issue going forward. Then you've got, stuff like this. Russian military base blown up as Ukraine fights back. This is Newsweek. Take a lot of this with a grain of salt. This is, very, very quick reporting. This is all happening in real time. So a lot of this stuff may not actually be accurate. So just keep that in mind. We're doing our best to get you as much information as we can. Ukrainian missiles appear to have hit a Russian military base in Milarovo, in a Russian town 16 kilometers from the border of the two countries, according to unconfirmed social media posts. Now, that was in Newsweek, and this is, let me give you the, where is the story? I had the story up. Did I close it? I might have closed it. I had the story up that showed the Russian base getting hit, but essentially that's it. It's the Ukrainians launched missiles and they hit a Russian airbase. So I wouldn't call it destroyed, but again, you're dealing with a lot of civilians. Russian military base blown up as Ukraine fights back. It's not destroyed. There's some damage there. That base should be functional after that, but they did get some hits on it, so there is that. But like I said, you're gonna have a lot of civilian reporters who don't understand battlefield stuff, and they're gonna say things that don't make a lot of sense to veterans. But just keep that in mind. Ukrainian military blew up a bridge near Kiev to stop Russian troop advancement, according to the report. I don't need to unlock this for you. You can go to 12foot.io if you want to and unlock it. You can sign up for the Epic Times and you read it for free. But this story, apparently the engineer who rigged the bridge had to stay behind and blow the bridge up. In fact, I think that he is mentioned on this Twitter here. this story here is also amazing. We'll get to that. Yeah, this is the engineer right here. So the engineer, Shakun Vitali, volunteered to perform this task. He mined the bridge, but couldn't leave, blew it up together with himself. The unit was able to successfully deploy. So he sacrificed himself so his unit could get out of there and they could destroy that bridge and stop, or at least slow the advance of the Russians at that point in time. We'll get to this story here in just a second. This is an amazing, amazing story. It's tragic, but still an amazing story. So you're starting to see some of this stuff, materialize, but, the bridge story was huge. This is that island story that I was telling you about. 13 Ukrainian soldiers posthumously awarded as hero after telling a Russian ship to go bleep themselves. So the island, is it Snake Island? Is that what they call it? Let's see. I don't know exactly what it was. They have the audio of it, but obviously most of you don't speak the language. So anyway, they were manning this island, okay? There were 13 people that were manning the island. A Russian ship had come off of the coast somewhere and basically ordered them to surrender. And they said, Russian ship, go bleep yourself, and then they were killed. But they have been awarded, posthumously. They've been given the title of hero. Zelensky has taken a shot at Biden again. Now, Zelensky took a shot at Joe Biden on day one of the attacks, where he said this is only happening because we live in an era of weak political leadership. A clear attack on Joe Biden. But he took another shot at him. He says the world's most powerful forces are watching from afar. That's true. That is true. And again, a lot of Americans, I know that many of you are split on this, but a lot of Americans have looked at this and said, why is this our fight? This is an ancient fight between these two. You're not wrong. Others have said, well, Ukraine is an ally, and we vowed to protect them. And you're not wrong either. That's true. So it's an interesting story. It's tragic in that, this is happening, but there is no doubt in any reasonable person's mind that this is happening because Biden is weak and Putin senses that weakness, and he has exploited that weakness for the past year. So he says this morning that we are defending our state alone. Like yesterday, the world's most powerful forces are watching from afar. Did yesterday's sanctions convince Russia? No, because the United States and most of the West are run by older people who don't understand cryptocurrency. The Russians moved away from having to worry about sanctions about 5 years ago. We hear in our sky and see on our earth that this was not enough. Correct. He's right. So, and then of course you have Biden saying in his speech, no one expected the sanctions to actually prevent anything from happening. God, what an idiot that guy is. There is this story out here. People have asked me about this. This is a story. So New York Post journalist Michael Goodwin said that Donald Trump told Vladimir Putin that he would order the bombing of Moscow if Russia attacked Ukraine. And I have no reason to doubt the story. There are several people who've kind of corroborated that there was something like this that took place. If you go back to the Trump administration, there were reports that Trump had issued a statement to Putin when he was at Mar-a-Lago. And so this seems to kind of go along with that storyline. During a recent conversation with the journalist at Mar-a-Lago, Trump made it clear that what he thought about the current developments. The former president slammed Biden's first year in office as an unmitigated disaster, asserting, I never thought anything like this could happen to us. He then skewered Biden's utter weakness when it comes to foreign policy and the catastrophe in Afghanistan, and how both Putin and President Xi have been emboldened by his administration's impotence. And that's true. Now, Eric, the fart Swalwell, he went out there and he lied about Trump's statement on what had happened with the Ukraine. And, of course, the traditional news media just ran with it, and they completely left out an entire paragraph with Trump admonishing what Putin was doing. But that's just how it is. So, but it's an interesting story, and I know that for those of you who listen to our radio station, Bongino comes on before my show, and you're like, hey, Bongino talked about this, and it does. It lines up with reports that we had at the time when Putin visited Mar-a-Lago. Ukrainian president is also saying that he has been left alone by the West as he considers signing a neutrality deal with Russia. This is Zelensky, and again, it's whether or not he does, we'll see. It's really early, and the Ukrainian army is having some success. You're never going to automatically be able to repel a Russian invasion. That just wasn't going to happen. The Russians have air superiority. You're going to have to fight differently. The real question is, will the Ukrainians have the strength to hold out until their military can learn how to do that properly? They are making some real strides. Let's take a look at some of what's going on here. Oh, darn it. Did I accidentally click allow? That's terrible. Okay, I'm going to have to fix that. All right, anyway. So, Ukraine says it has inflicted one of Russia's heaviest ever day of losses with more than 1,000 casualties. I'm assuming most of that's probably dealing with the Sumy region. As the Russians are going into Sumy. They were hit pretty hard by the Ukrainians. Ukrainians lost, but the Russians they paid a heavy price to take that city. Putin's losses now stand at an estimated 2,800 troops, 80 tanks, 516 armored vehicles. Now, that's in 2 days. That is in 2 days. Now, the one question that a lot of people in the West have had, and it's a valid question, when the Russians went into Chechnya, everybody expected the Russians to run roughshod over Chechnya. The Russians didn't. The Russians paid a heavy price in Chechnya. And a lot of folks were saying, all right, will that happen here? Or has the Russian army learned its lesson? Have they adapted? Have they adjusted their tactics, their equipment, the way that they do things? Have they done that? And I'll be honest with you, I'm not seeing anything really creative from the Russian commanders here. I talked about it a little bit on my show yesterday. I think that American veterans are probably looking at this and going, wow, this is not very creative or brilliant or wise at all. The Russians are frankly being really sloppy and poorly led. I don't know how else to say it. And one of the things that is now happening because of Ukraine is the Western world gets to see how Russia would actually conduct a war. Now, obviously, Syria is a bit different than something like this. And the Russian tactics right now have been subpar, to say the least. They're not great. And as we continue to observe that, I mentioned this again yesterday on the radio show, and some of you are probably asking that question now. Would the Russian tactics have been different if their opponent weren't the Ukraine? Maybe. It's possible. But you always want to use the best tactics available to you so that way you maximize your efficiency, your effectiveness, and you reduce your loss of life. And that doesn't appear to be happening with the Russians at all. They appear to be trying just a plain brute force thing here, and they are paying a price for that. We'll see how long they are able to keep that up before the situation at home becomes, a little too politically disadvantaged for the Putin regime. But we'll see. But I mean, 2,800 troops and 80 tanks and 516 armored vehicles. If those numbers are even close. I mean, that's a heavy price for the military operations that they're doing right now. Heavy, heavy price indeed. Sorry, somebody's calling me, because why not? But at the same time, the Ukrainians, the 10 airplanes, 7 helicopters. We talked about some of that. Let's see. Russian officials have made similar claims. Moscow has captured more than 160 troops, destroyed 74 Ukrainian military ground facilities. I agree with that. That seems to line up with the news. Downed 5 fighter jets, 1 helicopter, destroyed 18 tanks and other armored vehicles. So, what's interesting here is that the Ukrainians appear to have the advantage in the kill-to-death ratio. They're just getting overwhelmed. Ukrainian forces earlier today claimed to have hit an airfield in southern Russia, destroying at least one of Moscow's Su-30 SM fighter jets. And again, that's that airfield that we talked about a little bit earlier. But, my point here is to just kind of give you the updates on what's going on, but also highlight that, hey, the Ukrainian army is capable of fighting. And this one thing that I've been telling people before, and they don't know anything about Ukraine, to hey, can they actually resist? Yeah, they can. They've got, with their active duty and the reserves, they got about 500,000 people. They can draw, I think, about 14 million men. And the order went out by Zelensky yesterday that men are not allowed to leave. So, you got to stay in the country. And that's where you see the horrible video and footage of the fathers putting their kids on buses and sending them off to Poland and safe zones and things like that to get out of the danger areas. But the Ukrainians are fighting back. The real question is, how long can they keep it up? The Russians are much more advanced. The Russians have the ability to adjust their tactics. But the one thing that we all kind of noticed is that, the Russians didn't use a shock and awe or a blitzkrieg-like strategy at all. It was not creative. It wasn't very advanced tactically, and they paid a price. So can their leadership adjust the tactics to make the Russian military in Ukraine more effective? That remains to be seen. The one thing that's always set the West apart from the East, particularly in the United States, is that our military officers are very capable and very well trained for the most part. And then you have people, who care about social justice stuff instead of actually winning wars. But this has been a very, very important lesson for the West for political reasons, but also militarily to watch how Russian will actually conduct a conflict. We're going to talk about Joy Behar and CNN coming up in just a couple of minutes here, and we're going to get into a lot of other things that don't have anything to do with Ukraine. But wanted to give you a bit of an update. I know that everybody's kind of talking about that, but I have the ability here to kind of show videos and stuff like that, which I don't usually get to do because I do a radio show primarily and I don't get to show those videos. So it's nice being able to show you those videos on this stream. All right, I'm going to have a word from our sponsor, silverfoxart.com. They make amazing custom wall art, whether it's a family photo, a logo for a business, a logo like mine. If you're a streamer or a podcaster and you want a logo that is made out of wood, it's handcrafted, it's got backlighting on it with RGB lights, you definitely want to check silverfoxart.com out. We'll be back in just a second. All right, we got to do this. Sorry, folks. Joy Behar's a moron. I don't know how else to say it. She just is. She's an absolute idiot. So, Clay Travis posted this, and pretty much everybody else posted this too. You got a war in Ukraine, and regardless of where you stand on interfering or not interfering, or interfering just with sanctions or with military equipment or training or wherever your position is on that, a lot of innocent people are going to die. A lot of folks who didn't ask for a conflict are going to be embroiled into it. Other people are going to lose loved ones. They're going to lose their homes. They're going to be refugees. This is not a small thing. And this is one of those situations where, it is a unique conflict in the modern era to see somebody like Russia and Ukraine kind of fight it out, because usually you're seeing a major power with, tribal people and that sort of stuff. But this is different. And because of that, there's, probably a bigger connection to most people because we're talking about people who live in cities and, they have houses and neighborhoods kind of like we have and that sort of stuff. And watching, that all kind of crumble has become a foreign idea to many people. They're used to seeing mud huts and things of that nature get destroyed. They're not used to seeing modern buildings and cities and things like that get decimated. It just hasn't happened in quite a long time with the imagery that we have available to us with everybody having a cell phone. So this is, I mean, The View is, nothing but oxygen thieves anyway. If you watch The View, there's a good chance that you don't have any brain cells left. You're probably just operating on pure instinct, but this should never have been said. And I can kind of understand what Joy Behar is trying to say, but it is crystal clear where her mind is, and it's 100% a terrible take on this.
Estimates are 50,000 Ukrainians will be dead or wounded, and that this is going to start a humanitarian crisis, a refugee crisis in Europe. We're talking about 5 million people that are going to be displaced. I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear what is going to happen.
Well, I'm scared of what's going to happen in Western Europe, too. You plan a trip, you want to go there. I want to go to Italy for 4 years. I haven't been able to make it because of the pandemic, and now this. It's like what's going to happen there?
Estimates.
Oh boy. Well, I'm sure the Ukrainian people are really sorry that they screwed up Joy Behar's vacation. What a terrible take. And, I get it. She's trying to say, okay, me being devil's advocate here, she's trying to say, look, I want to go to Western Europe, but will it be safe if I go? I've been trying to plan a vacation there for 4 years. Not a good take. Not a good take at all. But this, again, I mean, Joy Behar is there. You can see a picture of her. She's an idiot. This is one of the dumbest human beings on the planet. I don't know how else to say it. I really don't. But, not to be outdone, you've got CNN. This is an actual broadcast on CNN. Okay? Air raid sirens ring out in Ukraine's capital. Okay? Compelling? Newsworthy? And a little bit of chicken fried. Cold beer on a Friday night. A pair of jeans. What in the hell are they thinking? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? They cannot get their act together. Look, it's entirely possible that Brian Stelter is actually in charge at CNN, because I could see Brian Stelter go, I'm hungry, put an Applebee's commercial in there. I can see that. That's possible. The U.S. Border Patrol is finally going to get the chance to protect a border. It's just not going to be ours. This is justthenews.com. Biden administration imposes second effort in a year to divert border agents overseas. Last year was for Afghanistan. We talked about that. Of course, everybody talked about that. For the second time in a year, the Biden administration is seeking to divert Customs and Border Protection officers from the southern border crisis to an overseas conflict, this time to help process people fleeing the Russian assault in Ukraine. In a memo sent out Thursday morning and obtained by Just the News, CBP's Office of Field Operations sought volunteers willing to deploy immediately to Poland for Operation Ukraine support. The request comes 6 months after a similar effort to process Afghan refugees after the bungled U.S. exit from that country. What in the... So, just like with Afghanistan, I will ask you the same question here. Since everybody in the military knows how to run that Afghan op, from, your grunts and your ground pounders and your dirt darts to your pencil pushers and everybody knows how to run that operation in Afghanistan. And we all know it was run wrong. So the only way that operation could have been run that bad is if it was on purpose. Because it's not possible for that operation with standard American military tactics to have been so screwed up, so fouled up, that we lost those people at the end there. Should never have happened. Yet somehow, it went down that way. And everybody I've talked to, every veteran I've run into has all said the same thing. That could only have been done on purpose. There's no possible way that was just bad planning. That had to have been done on purpose. And so, you start to look at this and you go, hey, you know what? Sure seems like all of this at the southern border is done on purpose, right? And I know that most people have had that thought for a long time, but this seems to confirm that. So we're going to send our Border Patrol agents to Poland to deal with Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing the conflict, but our Border Patrol agents can't do that same job on our southern border without being accused of racism and assaulting people. Right. Chris Wallace, let's talk about Chris Wallace since we were talking about CNN here just a minute ago. Poor Chris Wallace. Apparently he's having daily meltdowns, according to John over here. John Nicosia says that he is having daily meltdowns. Now, remember, Chris Wallace left Fox News to go work for CNN. And I don't know why Chris Wallace thinks that CNN Plus is going to be a thing. It's not going to be a thing. Nobody watches CNN. Why would anybody pay for CNN Plus? CNN Plus is going to be a digital package when Time Warner gets their hands on it, if they don't kill it off altogether, that they will have to package with other things that people actually want to pay for, and then you'll get CNN Plus kind of included, and then they'll force CNN Plus content on you through advertising and everything else. You're just going to constantly get berated with it, kind of like MSNBC and CNN videos and things like that on YouTube, because nobody wants to watch them, so they're constantly forcing them into your feed and auto-playing them to artificially ramp up their views. So Chris Wallace leaves Fox News, goes to It's Not News at CNN, doesn't even go to the main product, which is already struggling. He thinks that CNN Plus is going to be a big deal. So he goes to CNN Plus because he doesn't understand what's actually happening at CNN. I don't know. And now, of course, the Zucker scandal happens. Allison, was it Gollust? Yeah, Gollust is now left. She's been fired. Now that everybody responsible for CNN Plus, remember, CNN Plus was Gollust and Zucker's baby. They're the ones that were convinced that this was the thing to do. Nobody wants CNN Plus. Nobody wants CNN. I mean, have you seen their ratings? I've never seen. If their ratings, and we've talked about this on my show, their ratings have declined so much that if that happened to me, I would have been fired. I would have been fired. There would have been no way. They would have gone through 2, maybe 3 ratings books before they got to the point where they said, it's not working anymore, Casey, go find another job. I've never seen anything like this. I know that we joke about it here on my show, but this is a true story. My show, my local show on the Indiana-Michigan border that covers both sides of the border, my show has more listeners than many of CNN's national television shows have. And that's insane. That is nuts. But it's true. And it should never happen. But it is. And so Wallace is over there now. And so he makes a terrible decision to leave Fox News. He goes to CNN. He doesn't even go to the main product. He goes to CNN Plus, which is extra stupid. And now everybody who even wanted CNN Plus around is gone from the company. He did this in the middle of a merger with Time Warner. This could be the one saving grace that Chris Wallace has, is that Chris Wallace actually has journalism chops. Even though I don't like the man personally, he has journalism chops. And CNN, under Time Warner CEO has made it very clear that they want to hire real journalists again. That was his words, not mine. And they want to start focusing on real news. So maybe Chris Wallace finds himself in a spot where Time Warner says, all right, you're the guy here, and he becomes a star. I don't know. But he's apparently having routine hissy fits. I love this. This is such a great headline. He has threatened to quit 2 times this week, and it's just Tuesday. So, hey, you make your bed, you lie in it. Chris Wallace, unfortunately, you decided that you were just going to go be this psychopath, this crazy person, and say a bunch of stuff that aren't true, just like Cavuto is doing, are demonstrably false with the evidence, and there you go. The audience turned on you because of that. Everybody knew you were a Democrat. Nobody cared that you were a Democrat. You were fair. You were always fair. People may not have liked your opinion, but you were fair until Trump came along and you weren't fair. And that's when people turned on you. People are okay with somebody they disagree with as long as that person is fair. And Chris Wallace used to be that guy until Trump came along, and Chris Wallace could not be that guy anymore. That's why people turned on him at Fox. Or I should say the Fox audience. All right. This one is just a bonker story. We'll get to this here in just a second. The Secret Service says that it cannot find Hunter Biden's travel records. Sure. All right, here we go. The Secret Service says that it cannot find Hunter Biden travel records for 2010, 2011, or 2013. This is the old Obama tactic again. What have I consistently told you about the Obama regime and all of the Obama regime holdovers that are in the Biden administration? Every single time something happens, what do? They pretend they didn't know, right? So when something would happen and Obama should have been responsible for it, Obama goes, I didn't learn about it until I read it in the newspaper with all of you guys. Right. When his attorney general on Fast and Furious, when he was approached about Fast and Furious, it's like, I didn't know about it. I didn't run Fast and Furious. I had to read about it in the newspaper, just like all of you guys. And of course, we ended up finding out emails that Eric Holder was lying. He knew about Fast and Furious. He named it. He knew about it, was well aware of it and everything else. When he was called on Fast and Furious, hey, we found these emails which prove that you were lying to us when you testified before Congress about not knowing about Fast and Furious. He goes, no. The Fast and Furious that I remembered was a different operation called Fast and Furious that involved a different country. I think he said Canada. Right. But every time something is supposed to be presented as evidence, it goes missing. IRS hard drives. Remember the hard drives that were supposed to back up those records? Oh, those hard drives got destroyed accidentally. This is a routine tactic of the Obamanites in Washington, D.C. So the Secret Service is like, hey, we can't find Hunter Biden's travel records. I don't know what you're talking about. See, what a lot of people don't realize is there's a grand jury indictment happening against Hunter Biden right now. And there's a bunch of witnesses, including his ex-girlfriend, who are testifying against him. And it was kind of funny. Somebody on the live stream yesterday was like, hey, Casey, wow, it looks like the Russians are being very thorough in destroying all of the evidence against the Biden family in Ukraine. Yeah, as we've been telling you, the Ukrainian government, the current government, has accused the Biden family of illegal activity in their country, which includes Hunter, to a lesser extent, Joe, and Joe Biden's brother. This is the current Ukrainian government, okay? The current government has accused the Biden family of high crimes in their country, and they have not been able to present their case to the U.S. in spite of the fact that we have a treaty with them that would require us to do that. So pretty interesting that this has been going on for a couple of years now, going back to the Trump administration. So the Secret Service is telling Republican investigators that it cannot find communications related to Hunter Biden's travels for 2010, 2011, or 2013 when President Joe Biden was the vice president. Oh, interesting stuff, right? Isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient that you lose the years that are needed? Isn't that just wonderful? You know, we can't find those records. We don't see anything to Kazakhstan or anything like that. So Republican Senators Chuck Schumer of Iowa, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin said the Secret Service a letter last month seeking unredacted records tied to Hunter Biden's travel between January of 2009 and January of 2017. They asked for full travel records and criticized the agency for years of inappropriate redactions, especially related to the controversial Kazakhstan trip in 2014, which we have covered extensively on the radio show. If you don't know about that, it's a doozy. Essentially, Hunter Biden meets the son of the mayor of the biggest city of the capital in Kazakhstan. The son of the mayor sells Hunter Biden cars. Hunter Biden's business doesn't deal in cars. Cash is exchanged, and all of a sudden, Joe Biden is meeting with the mayor of Kazakhstan's largest city. I just weird how that just materialized out of thin air. Official business trip. Hunter Biden flew on Air Force Two for that trip and everything else. So pretty interesting to see that. That's a very short version of what actually happened. The senators also lamented that 3 years of documents seem to be missing entirely. James Murray, the director of the U.S. Secret Service, said the agency didn't find any documents tied to the Republican request in a letter in mid-February. In consultation with the Department of Homeland Security in June 11, 2021, the Secret Service provided documents responsive to your request in accordance with law, long-standing executive branch practice, and department-wide standards, Murray wrote to the GOP. In October of 2020, the Secret Service worked extensively with your committees and agreed to search parameters provided by your office to identify communications regarding Mr. Biden's travel. These search parameters did not yield communications for the years of 2010, 2011, or 2013. Sure they didn't. Now, if you believe the Secret Service, that means some other swamp creature made them disappear. I think most people assume the Secret Service is lying. Johnson and Grassley said last month that they had determined that even though Hunter Biden was a Secret Service protectee from January 2009 through July of 2014, the agency did not produce any communications about his travel for the years of 2010, 2011, or 2013. Interesting stuff, right? Most of the time that they were protecting him, they didn't provide any travel records. Get that out of there, sorry. Part of the problem with doing this is that you get all the stupid pop-ups. Let's see. This raises questions given that USSS travel records show that Hunter Biden made trips to China and other destinations around the world, including Russia, Italy, Spain, and Mexico. The Republicans have long sought access to those records on President Biden's son and his taxpayer-funded travel while he allegedly conducted private business during Biden's vice presidency under President Barack Obama. Yeah. Does anybody actually believe for a second that the Secret Service can't find these documents? Like I said, if you believe the Secret Service, that means that somebody else in the government made them disappear. And who would that person be? Who would be the one that can make the Secret Service documents disappear but not make the USSS documents, noting that he traveled there, disappear? Because USSS is Secret Service. So how is it that there is a record of him traveling with the Secret Service, but they don't have any actual definitive records? How is that? How is that possible? Anyone? Right. It's not. And everybody knows it. So, all right. I'm going to take a look at a couple of the comments here. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Oh, it does have a bleach bit feel to it. Yes, no kidding. No kidding. Federal government should be mandated to record everything on the blockchain. Will ensure a copy resides somewhere. Not a bad idea. You know, once it goes in the blockchain, it doesn't disappear. Not a bad idea at all. I bet they could find your travel records. Yes. And here's the thing. I mean, imagine, I said this with the IRS story. When the IRS hard drives disappeared, I'm like, what would happen if you couldn't find your tax records for the previous couple of years? How would the IRS behave then? Would they be like, hey, because remember the IRS's, their official statement, it was a running gag on my show for a long time. Their running statement on why the hard drives that were supposed to have been turned over to Congress went missing. And then, remember, they were missing. Congress kept trying to get them. No, we need these hard drives. They're records. And you're required to keep those records. And the hard drives were like, we can't find the hard drives. The IRS kept saying, we can't find the hard drives. And then it was discovered that the hard drives were destroyed, and the committee went to the IRS and said, you found the hard drives because you destroyed them. But why didn't you tell us that you found them and destroyed them? Well, we didn't know that we did. Yes, you did, because we got records here that show that you knew that you found them and that you destroyed them. Why did you destroy the hard drives when you're required to keep them? And they said it was an accident. Sometimes, remember the line? Sometimes these things just happen. That was the line that the IRS director gave to the committee. So with the Secret Service, it's like, oh, why can't you find these records when he traveled to all of these countries that, has very problematic business dealings with? And he did so as a representative of the former vice president. Where's the records there? Well, we don't know. Can't find those records. What do you mean you can't find those records? We have other documents with the Secret Service that show that he made these trips. Why can't you find the actual documents with the details of those trips? I don't know. Sometimes these things just happen. I need a Casey MNC bumper sticker for our tire cover. I would have to custom make you one. I can't get my boss to buy into bumper stickers, man. He's convinced that people don't like bumper stickers. I've told him before, you make them that nice etched glass look, and they'll put them on their windows, and people will love them. I've had so many requests for bumper stickers. He just will not do it. He'll do pens. Nobody cares about pens, but okay. Let's see. Still can't get into Truth Social to post. Shake my head. That's going to happen, man. You're going to deal with that. There's so many people trying to get into Truth Social. This is probably why they only launched it on one platform right now. So Truth Social launched. It's only on Apple, and they're hoping that it'll be out on Android in a few weeks. So it'll come to the adults here in a few weeks. But for everybody else, you have to get in too. So they're letting people in slowly to try and minimize the damage and the glitches to the system. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But it's going to take some time, but at least you've got your spot in line. You'll get in there, man. It's just going to take time. It's a big new network, and everybody wants to be a part of it. So just that's it, man. You're still avoiding reviews and videos. Well, and that's just it. People are going to try and destroy Truth Social right off the get-go. They've already, Gab has already sent their paid operatives out there to try and kill off Truth Social, which is just a silly, ridiculous move on Gab's part. But, there's going to be people on the left who are going to try and destroy it. There'll be people on the right who are going to try and destroy it. But at the end of the day, if they're taking it slow, they're managing those glitches, they're managing those errors, they're making sure the servers can grow properly and that sort of thing, and they don't get overwhelmed and immediately just tank. That's the proper way to do it. It's frustrating for you as the user because you just want to hop in and do your thing, but it's not gonna pan out that way. So it's gonna take a couple of months before they finally get things streamlined, I think. But at least you've got your place in line. So hopefully it works out. All right, I think that what's up, Goose? Goose hopped over onto the page. Not many people hanging out on the website today. Most people hanging out on Rumble and YouTube. So I appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, please go to rumble.com/Casey the host. That's where I primarily stream everything. So we do 2 streams a day, unless I have weird, crazy stuff happen in the middle of the week. So 2 streams per day. We do one earlier in the day, sometime between 11 and 12. And then we do the other one from 3 until 6 every afternoon for the radio show. So again, please join us on Rumble, rumble.com/Casey the host.